All right, so today we're really going to get into it, diving into a pretty wild story from the Jamaican financial crisis back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, this is a big one.
We're talking about FINSAC,
FINSAC.
pronounced FINSAC.
Right, FINSAC.
And to really understand how it hit home, we're going to look at the experience of one specific borrower we're calling Debtor 6.
And we've got a lot to work with here. Loan documents, letters, even receipts.
The whole 9 yards.
It's all here.
So let's jump right in Debtor 6's story. What makes it so interesting?
Well, it starts out optimistic enough. It's 1994, and they're planning to build townhouses. 1 bedrooms on the ground floor, 2 bedrooms up top. They managed to secure a loan from an institution, and things seem like they're on track, you know?
Sounds pretty standard, right? A typical construction loan?
Yeah, on the surface.
So where does it all start to go wrong?
Well, even in that initial loan offer, there are these little hints of trouble brewing. Like, they offered what's called a demand loan facility, meaning they could demand the entire loan be repaid at any time.
Oh, wow. No
Yeah.
pressure or anything.
Right. And on top of that, there's this interest rate fluctuation clause basically tied to local market conditions. So Debtor 6 is walking a tightrope from the get-go.
Oh, yeah. That's never a comfortable feeling.
Yeah.
So they're not exactly dealing with the most ideal situation here, but they're still pushing forward trying to get this project off the ground. What kind of collateral did they have to put up for this loan?
Okay, so get this. A joint legal construction mortgage, an unlimited personal guarantee, and they even had to sign over their contractors' all-risk insurance.
It sounds like they were going all in.
They were putting everything on the line. And on top of all that, they needed to secure pre-sales contracts with deposits for at least 8 units before August 31st, 1994.
Talk about pressure. It's like the lenders were already getting nervous even before things really went downhill.
Oh, absolutely. And that nervousness just keeps growing. Over the next year, by September 1995, there's a new commitment letter wiping out all the old agreements. The loan amount has gone up, likely because of rising costs or delays, and now it's not just for construction. They need to buy the land, too.
So even more debt just to stay afloat.
Exactly. And to make things worse, the lender demands even more security, a second mortgage. And get this, an assignment of Debtor 6's life insurance policy.
Oh, wow. So now it's getting personal.
This isn't just business anymore. And remember, this is all before FinSAC even enters the picture.
Setting the stage right.
Exactly. The stage is set. By September 1997, FinSAC, the Financial Sector Adjustment Company, they become the new lender, taking over all the existing debt.
Here comes the big kahuna. Everyone's heard the stories about FinSAC, especially in Jamaica, but what did their involvement actually mean for someone like Debtor 6 on the ground?
Well, at first glance, it might have seemed like a good deal. You know, FinSAC swoops in, consolidates all those debts, even waived some of the fees the other lenders had piled on.
Ah, so the classic out of the frying pan into the fire situation. It sounds like FinSAC weren't exactly known for being flexible.
Not really. Their whole thing was to stabilize the financial system, not to rescue individual borrowers.
Right, makes sense.
And their methods definitely show that they weren't happy with just the mountain of collateral. Debtor 6 had already put up, oh no, they wanted more.
Seriously.
We're talking more mortgages, more guarantees, the whole shebang. They wanted to be covered no matter what.
Wow. So what about Debtor 6's ability to actually pay all this back? Did FinSAC change the terms of the loan at all?
Oh, they did. Instead of being tied to a specific date, those principal payments were now linked to the sale of the townhouses.
So if those properties didn't sell, they were in big trouble.
Exactly. At the mercy of the real estate market on top of everything else. And remember, this is 1997. Things are getting really bad in the Jamaican financial sector. A lot of borrowers like Debtor 6 are about to get hit with another curveball.
Oh boy, here we go. What happens next?
So in November 1997, in the middle of all this chaos, Debtor 6 gets a letter from this other institution offering a line of credit.
Okay, so not to directly pay off FinSAC, but maybe to kind of keep their head above water.
Yeah.
What was this line of credit for?
It was supposed to help them buy more land and actually finish building those townhouses and apartments. It seems like they were trying to scale up their operation, hoping that more revenue would help them tackle those debts.
A risky move, for sure. But when you're backed into a corner, sometimes you have to roll the dice. It sounds like there were some strings attached to this line of credit, though, right? They couldn't just get the money without jumping through some hoops.
You got it. They needed to have the project costs reviewed by a qualified surveyor and then get approval from all the other lenders involved, including FinSAC.
So a whole lot of paperwork, bureaucracy, and probably delays.
Exactly. And on top of that, they had to prove they'd sorted out some legal issues with land use restrictions, restrictive covenants, they're called, and then get all the necessary government approvals. It's a lot to handle, even without a mountain of debt hanging over your head.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So what about those pre-sales agreements? Were those still part of the deal?
They were, but the timeline shifted a bit. Now they needed pre-sales for at least 6 townhouses within 6 months of starting construction. It seems like this institution was trying to give Debtor 6 a fighting chance, but they still needed to prove the project could actually make money.
So did this line of credit end up being the lifeline Debtor 6 needed?
Unfortunately, no. It's actually heartbreaking. They formally accepted the credit facility in November of 97, but by May of 98, the situation had completely changed.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. What happened? Did the institution back out?
They did. In May 1998, Debtor 6 got a letter formally canceling the credit facility.
Oh, man, what a blow. After all those hoops they jumped through and it all falls apart, what went wrong?
It's not totally clear from the documents. It's possible Debtor 6 just couldn't meet all those conditions, especially with everything else going on. Or maybe the institution got cold feet, with the financial crisis in full swing. Whatever the reason, that cancellation was devastating, basically their last hope of salvaging the project.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can just imagine how desperate Debtor 6 must have felt at that point. Debts piling up, projects stalled, and now their lifeline is gone. What'd they do?
Well, remember that letter Debtor 6 sent to FINSAC in May of 99, the one where they're practically begging for a way out?
Right.
It's hard to even fathom. And that letter really shows you just how dire things had become. They were drowning in debt and they knew it. And they were upfront with FINSAC about it, explaining how those sky-high interest rates had turned a manageable loan into an impossible situation.
So they were basically at FINSAC's mercy. What did they propose as a solution?
They suggested a two-pronged approach. First, they offered to sell off some assets to try and chip away at the debt. Then they asked for additional funding to start a new company, hoping to generate income and get back on their feet.
A long shot, but you have to admire their resilience. Still trying to find a way out, even when all hope seems lost.
Yeah.
So did FINSAC go for it?
Sadly, no. Instead of working with Debtor 6 to find some kind of solution, FINSAC did something that terrified a lot of borrowers back then. They transferred the entire debt to a subsidiary called Refin Trust Limited.
Refin Trust Limited. That name rings a bell. Weren't they known for being even tougher than FINSAC?
That's putting it mildly. Refin Trust had a reputation for being ruthless when it came to collecting. They were less interested in finding solutions and more interested in getting their money back no matter what.
Oh, no. This can't be good. What happened next?
Yeah, Refin Trust, they weren't messing around.
So what happened with Debtor 6? Did they end up facing Refin Trust's wrath?
They did. In October 2002, just a few months after that debt transfer, Debtor 6 got a letter this time from Dennis Joslin Jamaica Inc., acting on behalf of Refin Trust Limited. And it was a formal demand for payment.
Right.
Sell payment within 14 days.
Oh, man. Talk about pressure.
And it gets worse. They tacked on a 30% annual interest rate to the outstanding balance.
30%. Are you serious? That's brutal. They're already drowning in debt, and then Refin Trust hits them with that.
It's a perfect example of how unforgiving the system was, especially for borrowers like Debtor 6. And this is where their story kind of fades out. We don't have any more documents to tell us what happened next.
So we're left with a cliffhanger. Did Debtor 6 manage to pull off a miracle and pay off Refin Trust?
Honestly, it's hard to imagine how they could have. They were up against a wall, massive debt, a stalled project, and this incredibly aggressive debt collection agency. It's a situation that, sadly, a lot of borrowers caught up in the FINSAC situation found themselves in.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, the financial reports.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these are real people with real lives that were turned upside down.
Exactly. And that's something we should never forget, Debtor 6's story, even though we don't have all the pieces. It shows us the very real human cost of a financial crisis.
Absolutely. Well said. It's a reminder to be aware of how these systems work, the power dynamics involved, and how important it is to protect the people who are most vulnerable.
I completely agree.
Debtor 6's story is a story of ambition and struggle, but ultimately it's a story about the human cost when a financial system collapses. And that's something we should all think about.